I'll now call to order the regular meeting dated Thursday, March 7th, 2019. I'd like to remind everyone to silence their phones or any other electronic devices they may have. If you would like to speak on one of the items on the agenda, please fill out one of the blue slips in the back of the room and turn it in to Miss Jessica, please. This time we'll have the invocation and pledge of allegiance by Mr. Bears.
Let's bow our heads. Join with me in praying the Lord's Prayer. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, as we forgive those who trespass against us.
As we forgive those who trespass against us. Lead us not into temptation.
Deliver us from evil. Amen. Pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I believe I heard that version before, Mr. Bears.
Time to go back to church, Mr. Harris.
The voice saying don't mess it up.
Roll call, Miss Kathy.
Yes, sir. Mr. Abshire?
Here.
Mr. Angelpon is out of town this evening. Mr. Barris?
Here.
Mr. Brame?
Here.
Mr. Collins?
Here.
Mr. Farnham?
Here.
Mr. Guidry? Mr. Guidry?
Here.
Guillory?
Here.
Mr. Landry is out of town on business. Mr. Latour?
Here.
Remy was unable to attend this evening, and President White.
Here. Thank you, ma'am. Item 4, take appropriate action on the applications of liquor and beer permits. Mr. Crane.
President, we have two applications before you
So
tonight.
moved.
Recommend they be approved.
We have a motion by Mr. Collins and a second by Mr. Guidry. Any discussion? Any objection? That item carries. Item 5, consideration of approving payments on all current invoices.
So moved. Second.
I have a motion by Mr. Brame and a second by Mr. Guidry. Any discussion? Any objection? That item carries. Item 6, consideration of approving the minutes of the
Second.
regular meeting of the police jury dated February 7th, 2019. I have a motion by Mr. Guillory and a second by Mr. Guidry. Any discussion? Any objection? That item carries. Item 7, consideration of approving the parish-wide drainage committee report dated February 26, 2019. Mr. Scott is not with us this evening, so I'll go ahead and read the report. The parish-wide drainage committee report, police jury, Mr. Scott led or chaired February 26, 2019. The parish-wide drainage committee received a report from staff on the input received on the report and recommendations presented to the committee on October 2018 regarding the management and structure for the drainage maintenance in this parish. After receiving public comments and agreed that another meeting for the committee to be scheduled Tuesday, March 12th at 5:30 to receive additional input if necessary and to take formal action on staff recommendations. I need a motion to receive this report.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion by Mr. Guidry and a second by Mr. Bears. Any discussion? We do have a speaker on that item. Mr. Gabb, would you like to elaborate?
Mr. President, typically on receiving reports like this, when there's no action to be taken other than to receive the report, comments are usually not favored. But if there is a comment about whether to receive this report or not, those comments have to be limited to that. So I don't know really what could be said, but Mr. Atherton does want to speak on it. So I guess we can allow with a little bit of leeway, maybe accept his comments. And maybe I would suggest maybe no more than 2 minutes.
I agree.
Okay. Name and address for the record, please.
Charlie Atherton, 122 Vine Street, Suffolk, Louisiana.
So, Mr. Charlie, this ain't gonna go against your time. Mr. Atherton, should I say, did you understand what Mr. Gabb said about commenting on receiving the report?
What, he talked to me a few minutes ago. This is the very first time I've been involved in jury business since 1964, and when you have an agenda item, this is the very first time that the public's not been allowed to speak on an agenda item, because the only time we can speak on an item is when you guys put it on the agenda. Not, the public does not have the, you don't have a public speaks portion in your meeting that would allow people to come up, you know, and make comments or questions. So I don't know. This is not working well for the jury in moving forward, especially with the drainage issue. I just had a couple of comments I wanted to make with the jury. No big deal. I'm not the filibuster on this.
Well, Mr. Gabb was saying, we are just receiving the report that was dated back from Mr. Scott's meeting. We do have those meetings that we hold for drainage committee nights to where the public can speak and have comments of what we're doing. Tonight, we're just receiving that report from that meeting. That is all we're doing tonight.
Right. And my point was all that at that meeting, to balance the discussion, all I was going to ask this jury was, because the full jury has to vote on this, was would the jury at some point be willing to give the people initiative and referendum relative to this issue? So I wanted you guys to be thinking about it in the future, because this is, you know, you pass things for the that the people have to follow, but the people never have any recourse, and you're pretty sure this will all work. But if you go to the legislature, my question to you is, are you willing to go to the legislature and ask the legislature to give the people of the parish the right to have initiative and referendum, which gives us the ability to ask you by petition to have you take action or to reverse an ordinance that you may pass? And that's my question. I'm just asking, I just wanted you guys to be thinking about that.
Like, once again, Mr. Atherton, this is just a comment period, and I appreciate your question, and I would invite you back to the next meeting, which I just stated was March 12th at 5:30 p.m. That's when you would have questions and comments that you could address the committee at. And then also, when the police jury meets on this again about this drainage ordinance, come back with your comments and your questions again in front of the whole jury on that night. Tonight is just to receive the report. So thank you for your questions.
Your time.
All right. Huh? Mr. Bears.
Thank you. Mr. Gabb, you know, real quick, I don't think we can say this enough, for it or against it. The dissolution or the consolidation of the drainage district, that the way that has to go down, that all comes from the state. That's not something that we can just say, hey, let's vote on this. That in that the protocol.
Well, it is, and again,
statute.
It is, but again, the item right now is just to receive the
Okay.
report. We could certainly go into that a lot, but
I digress.
Mr. Gilray.
No, I'm good. Go ahead.
Mr. Latour.
Since we're already on the subject, not really going to go too much into it, but could you just in your spare time just put something together on what he's talking about, just to see how it would shape up if
Absolutely.
just in the future? I would
Sure.
appreciate that. Thank you. I yield back.
Any further discussion on receiving a report? Do we have any objection? Hearing none, that item carries. Item 8, consideration of approval of the Public Works Committee reported dated February 28, 2019. Ms. Mayo.
Second.
The Public Works Committee report dated February 28, 2019 is as follows. A, recommended approving the following requests to include the adoption of resolutions and/or ordinances. Number 1, approving an active sale agreement for the Ham Reed Road Extension Project. Number 2, approving a utility and drainage servitude agreement for the Ham Reed Road Extension Project. Number 3, approving active sale agreements for the Niblet Bluff Road Bridge Replacement and Realignment Project. Number 4, approving a real estate sales agreement for the Calcasieu Parish Transportation Initiative Project. Number 5, acknowledging that the annual Municipal Water Pollution Prevention MWPP audit has been conducted for Sewage District Number 11 of Wards 3 and 8 wastewater treatment plant. Number 6, approving an amendment to the cooperative endeavor agreement between the Police Bureau and AECom Technical Services for the Contraband Bayou Regional Detention Center project. Number 7, authorizing the Director of Public Works to advertise for the following projects. A, drainage improvement of various roads. B, clearing and snagging of Cayuchi Cooley lateral KC-L44. C, clearing and snagging of Bayou Arsenal lateral BA-L47. D, clearing and snagging of Beerhead Creek BHC-L98. E, clearing and snagging of Buxton Creek lateral BC-L93. Number 8, accepting the following projects as substantially complete. A, Parish Barn Road Bridge Replacement Project. B, Pine Hill Cemetery Road. Number 9, accepting Copper Ridge subdivision located off of OJ Road in Ward 3. 10 is an advised item that the alcohol-free family zone, the zone, will be held on Tuesday, March 5th, 2019. 11, another advised item, the annual rabies vaccination clinic will be held on Saturday, March 16, 2019, and on Saturday, March 30th, 2019. This is the end of my report, Mr. President.
Thank you, Ms. Mayo. We had a motion by Mr. Bears and a second by Mr. Brame to receive your report. Do we have any discussion? Any objection? That item carries. Item 9, consideration of approving the agenda committee report dated February 28, 2019. I had a motion by Mr. Gilry and a second by Mr. Latour. Any discussion? Any objection? That item carries. Item 10, consideration of approving the budget committee report dated March 7, 2019. Mr. Brame.
Thank you, Mr. President. The Budget Committee met today at 5 p.m. and recommended that the following requests be approved. A, Ward 3, $6,000, Recreation District Number 1 of Ward 3 for the costs related to summer activity programming at Foreman Raynaud Community Center. B, Ward 3, $12,000, Recreation District Number 1 of Ward 3 for costs related to the construction of a cricket field at Enos Durbone Sports Complex. C, Community Center and Playground District Number 2 of Ward 4, SPAR, $35,000 for the costs related to LHSAA Girls State Softball Championship. D, Community Center and Playground District Number 2 of Ward 4, SPAR, $10,000 for costs related to the LHSAA Boys State Baseball Championship. E, Calcasieu Parish Voluntary Council on the Aging Incorporated, $100,000 funding assistance for the 2019 Meals on Wheels program. F, Louisiana High School Athletic Association, $10,000 for costs associated with the LHSAA Boys Basketball Championship, March Madness. And G, Louisiana High School Rodeo Association, $25,000 for the cost associated with the state high school and junior high school rodeo.
Move to approve all items.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Brame. We have a motion by Mr. Farnum and a second by Mr. Bears to receive your report. Any discussion? Mr. Gilry.
Yes, I just want to thank the Budget Committee for the $6,000 for Farmer Reno. That's going to help a lot of the kids during the summer for the program out there. They feed the kids and do a lot of things. They also do some schooling with the kids. So thank you for the Budget Committee.
Mayo.
The $6,000 that is going to the former Raynard Community Center is for a STEM program that we're getting ready to bring over there. For those that's not familiar with the STEM program, it's science, technology, engineering, and math. I felt that this was going to benefit the community because we want to bring in a program that is going to start to introduce our kids to something that is going to enhance them later on in life, teach them about engineering, about computer science, as well as welding. And I felt this was going to be a great benefit. They have 25 students there in the after-school program and over 180 kids that attend summer camp. So I felt that this would be a great improvement for them, teaching them early to prepare them for a high-tech, high-paying job later on in life. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Mayo. It is all about the kids, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. That's what I've been here for, fighting for the kids.
Thank you, Mayo. Any further discussion? Any objection? Carries. Item 11, consideration of adopting an ordinance allowing the deposition of the police jury's interest in the donation to the city of Lake Charles for each of the following adjudicated properties. A, 722 Fournette Street. B, 600 block of Boston Street. C, corner of North Louisiana Avenue and North Railroad Avenue. And D, 1200 block of Opelousas Street.
I move Opelousas.
Second.
I have a motion by Mr. Latour and a second by Mr. Abshire. Do we have discussion?
One more
Mr.
time.
Gilroy.
Yes, I thought, Mr. Tim, I thought on the corner lots that we was gonna try to hold on to the corner lots, especially for the flood program or anything with all these adjudicated properties. Any one of the corner lots? No?
Mr. Guillory?
Mr. Crane.
Okay, Mr.
Yes,
Crane.
sir. Again, these are inside the city limits of Lake Charles, and specifically, they're in the Lake Charles North redevelopment area. And so, the agreement that we have with the city and that redevelopment authority is to give those interests or the interest of the police jury to them so they can, either sell them, City Source can sell them, or whatever. So, but we are looking at those in terms of floodplain. None of these are in the floodplain.
All right, thank you,
So
Mr. Crane.
we would, in other words, we would have to change our contract with them.
I wish
right?
we would. I wish we would.
We can certainly look at it, but we have a contract with them right now.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gilroy. Thank you, Mr. Crane. Any further discussion? Any objection? 11 carries. 12, consideration of adopting a resolution authorizing the submittal of a grant application for to the Governor's Office of Homeland Security and Emergency Preparedness for the Hazard Mitigation Grant Program for the acquisition of a elevation of flood-prone residential structures in Calcasieu Parish.
Second.
Had a motion by Mr. Latour and a second by Mr. Gilroy. Any discussion? Any objection? Item 12 carries. Item 13, consideration of authorizing the person, purchasing agent to advertise for bids for the following.
Second.
A, government building chiller replacement project. B, Burton Coliseum HVAC and generator replacement project. And C, Human Resources Department renovation project. And D, Calcasieu Emergency Response Training Center HVAC replacement project. I had a motion by Mr. Abshire and a second by Mr. Latour. Any discussion? Any objection? Item 13 carries. Item 14, take appropriate action on qualification statements received by the parish purchase agent for professional development
Move on
review
14.
consulting services for the use of the Division of Engineering. After review of the qualification statements, the staff recommends the proposal of CSRS, Inc. be accepted. I had a motion by Mr. Bears and a second by Mr. Brain. Any discussion? Any objection? 14 carries. Item 15, take appropriate action on the following bids and/or proposals received by the parish and purchasing agent. A, Calcasieu Parish Project number 2018-13. The parish engineer recommends that the low bid in the amount of $996,504 of Gwynn Construction LLC be accepted. B, sign faces. The staff recommends that the low responsible bid and responsive bid of Osborne Associates, Inc. be accepted. C, 2019 or newer 4x2 hydraulic excavator. The staff recommends the low responsible and responsive bid in the amount of $262,325 of Scott Equipment Company, LLC be accepted. D, Calcasieu Parish Project number 19-101-0567. The parish engineer recommends that the low bid in the amount of $3,335,814.50 of Prairie Constructions or Contractors, LLC be accepted.
Move on all bullets.
Second.
I have a motion by Mr. Gilry and a second by Mr. Guidry on all bullets. Do we have any discussion? Any objection? That carries. Item 16, take appropriate action on the terms of the following members of various boards and districts. A, Calcasieu Public Safety Communications District, Ms. Susan G. Villasan.
I move to reappoint Ms. Vasilio.
Ms. Vasilio. And two, Mr.
I move
Mason
to
Lindsay.
reappoint Mr. Mason Lindsay.
We have a motion by Mr. Brame and a second by Mr. Farnum to reappoint both. B, Southwest Louisiana Regional
Make a
Planning
motion to
Commission,
Reappoint Mr. Wes Crane.
Mr.
Second.
Wes Crane. I have a
The vote
motion.
was unanimous.
Mr. President, if we can go back to 16A real quick, I think we, I don't know if we, my notes don't reflect that we took action yet. I know we had a motion and a second to
Reappoint.
reappoint. Yes, sir. You can just restate it again, I'm sorry.
Had a motion and a second to reappoint both Ms. Susan Vasilio and Mr. Mason Lindsay. By Mr. Brame and a second by Mr. Farnum. Any discussion? Any objection? That item carries.
Thank you, Mr. President, I apologize.
So we got to do that for all of them, correct?
Yes, sir.
B, Southwest Louisiana Regional Planning Commission, Mr. Crane.
Crane.
Second.
I'd like to make a motion to reappoint Mr. Crane.
I have a motion by Mr. Latour and a second by Mr. Abshire to reappoint Mr. Crane. Any discussion? Any objection? That carries. C, Ward 4 Fire Protection District Number 2.
Move to reappoint Mr. Jeremy Burton and Mr. Dale Hernandez.
Second.
I have a motion by Mr. Bears to reappoint Mr. Burton and Mr. Hernandez, and I have a second by Mr. Farnum. Do I have any discussion? Any objection? C carries. D, Water Works
Move
District
to
Number
appoint
7,
Mr.
Ward
Adrian
4
Brock
and
Peterson.
6.
Second.
I have a motion by Ms. Mayo and a second by Mr. Latour to appoint Mr. Adrian Brock Peterson. Do we have any discussion? Any objection? That item carries. E, Water District Number 12 of Ward 3.
Move to defer action till June 6, 2019.
Second.
I have a motion by Mr. Brame and a second by Mr. Latour to defer until June 6, 2019 meeting. Any discussion? Any objection? We will defer that item. 17 is April 2019 advised items. I have a motion to adjourn by Mr. Gilry and a second by Ms. Mayo. We are adjourned.
There was some discussion.